How did a fake whiskey fool millions and become one of the most popular liquor brands in America? Because what people have been drinking isn't whiskey, it just looks like it is. Fireball Cinnamon sells in over 170,000 stores, and not one of those little red bottles contains a single drop of real whiskey. In just 5 years, these mini bottles raked in over $70 million, fought lawsuits, and became one of the top 50 beer brands in America, all by using a simple loophole anyone could have spotted. But to understand how Fireball pulled off one of the most successful whiskey scams in American history, we need to start at the beginning, because before the tiny bottle scam, there was a much bigger one. The year is 2007. Flavored spirits are exploding, college parties are raging, and on the bottom shelf of every liquor store sits a forgotten failure, Dr. McGillicuddy's Fireball whiskey. Too sweet for whiskey drinkers, too boring for college kids, a schnapps pretending to be a whiskey shooter dying a slow death. But inside the Sazerac Company boardroom, an executive sees what everyone else missed. The schnapps market for young adults is crowded, but the whiskey market is wide open. So they ask themselves one simple question. What if we created a whiskey designed for parties, not whiskey drinkers? But there were 3 problems standing in their way. Problem number 1. The name Dr. McGillicuddy's Fireball whiskey was about as catchy as reading a prescription bottle. Problem number 2. Real whiskey burns. College kids wanted shots that went down like candy. And finally, problem number 3. Real whiskey takes years to age and costs a fortune to make. Time and money Sazerac didn't have. However, what happens next reveals just how far one company was willing to go to bend the rules. First, they killed the old name. Out went Dr. McGillicuddy's, and in came one explosive word: Fireball. Dangerous, modern, memorable, a name that screamed party instead of medicine cabinet. Second, they kept the sugary schnapps formula. Smooth, sweet, and dangerously easy to drink. One Reddit user put it perfectly: it tastes like drinking apple pie. But here's where the real trickery begins. They needed to call it whiskey, but there was a massive legal problem. To be real whiskey in America, you need 2 things: at least 40% alcohol and age for at least 2 years in barrels. Fireball, as it sat, was technically a schnapps marketed as a whiskey-style shooter. It contained just 33% alcohol and had no aging to speak of. But then they found a loophole. If you slap flavored whiskey on the label and add a trace amount of real whiskey, you don't need to distill, age, or do any of the hard work. You can skip the process entirely. So that's exactly what they did. They bought cheap pre-made Canadian whiskey from a distributor and blended just enough into their candy schnapps to technically qualify as flavored whiskey. Real whiskey, 40%. Fireball, 33%, but because it's flavored, it scrapes by legally. However, in places like Europe and Japan, they can't sell it as whiskey because it doesn't meet the alcohol or aging requirements. But in America, totally legal. In one move, Sazerac had solved all of their problems. A product that looked like whiskey, tasted like candy, and could legally call itself flavored whiskey. But making fake whiskey was only the beginning. Now they had to sell it. And that's when they unleashed one of the most brilliant marketing strategies in spirits history. Marketing lesson number 1. Authentic word of mouth is the most powerful form of advertising. People don't buy goods and services, they buy relations, stories, and magic. Seth Godin in his book Lynchpin in 2010. 2007, Richard Polms, a brand ambassador, walks into a Nashville bar with a simple mission: make Fireball the most talked about shot in America. Not with TV commercials, not with celebrity endorsements, but with free shots. His strategy was genius in its simplicity. Walk into a bar, buy shots for strangers, post it on social media. Move to the next bar, and repeat it every single night. Fireball didn't position itself as a premium whiskey, it positioned itself as the shot everyone was doing. The drink that turned strangers into friends, the drink that made nights legendary. But here's what made this strategy absolutely lethal for competitors. Bars loved it too. Marketing lesson number 2. Make your distributors your best salesman. Every customer interaction is a marketing opportunity. If you go above and beyond on the customer service side, people are much more likely to recommend you. Stuart Butterfield, co-founder of Slack and Flickr. Here's an interesting stat. Liquor shots have a profit markup of 400 to 500%, the highest of any drink type. A single Fireball shot costs a bar about 60 cents to pour, and they sell it for $5 to $7 a shot. That's roughly a 900% markup, all from one quick pour. So when a Fireball ambassador walked in buying rounds of shots, bartenders paid attention. Within just 2 years, from 2011 to 2013, Fireball went from $1.9 million in retail sales to $61 million, a 3,100% increase. The brand that was once dying on shelves was now outselling Jameson and Patron, all from a strategy that started with one guy buying shots in Nashville bars. But buying bar shots was just phase 1. Sazerac knew something critical. If they wanted to dominate, they needed to be everywhere young people gathered, so they built an army. Marketing lesson number 3, depth is far more powerful than width. The essence of marketing is narrowing the focus. You become stronger when you reduce the scope of your operations. Al Rees from his book Focus in 1996. Fireball doubled down on what they were already doing. No promotional gear, no corporate pitches, just regular people handing out free Fireball. They showed up at college tailgates, country music festivals, hockey arenas, anywhere crowds gathered, Fireball was there. And unlike other brands spending millions on TV ads and celebrities, Fireball spent almost nothing on traditional marketing. While competitors poured money into Super Bowl commercials, Fireball invested in grassroots activation. Throughout the 2010s, their marketing agency Zender deployed just a handful of ambassadors to key markets. Within 3 years, that team grew to nearly 25 ambassadors across more than 20 states. They didn't look like marketers, they looked like friends, standing in line at bars, buying drinks, posting on Instagram, creating organic buzz. And the strategy paid off. By 2014, when you factor in bars, Fireball hit $863.5 million in total sales. It became the 7th most popular liquor brand in America. But just as Fireball was reaching its peak, something went very, very wrong. 2014, Fireball gets pulled from shelves across Europe. The reason? Propylene glycol. The same chemical is used in antifreeze. But before you panic, propylene glycol is FDA approved and actually appears in tons of foods. But here's the thing, Europe has stricter limits, and Fireball was way over them. Marketing lesson number 4, crisis creates opportunity. This defines entrepreneur and entrepreneurship. The entrepreneur always searches for change, responds to it, and exploits it as an opportunity. Peter F. Drucker. So what did Sazerac do? Freak out, issue apologies, recall everything? Nope. In just 3 weeks, they reformulated the entire European recipe, lowered the propylene glycol, and kept selling. Crisis averted, profit secured. But here's what the scandal revealed. Fireball had always been willing to operate in the gray areas of regulation. The antifreeze scandal should have destroyed Fireball, instead it made the brand even more famous. Everyone was talking about Fireball, news outlets, social media, and in the liquor industry, awareness is everything. By the end of 2015, the brand had overtaken Jägermeister in popularity and had also become the top-selling flavored whiskey in the entirety of the United States. The scandal didn't kill them, it amplified them, and they were about to do it again, but this time on an even bigger scale. 2016. Fireball is dominating liquor stores, but Sazerac sees an opportunity worth hundreds of millions of dollars. What if they could sell Fireball everywhere? Not just liquor stores, gas stations, grocery stores, and convenience stores. 170,000 new locations. There was just one problem. Real whiskey can't legally be sold in those stores, state law prohibits it. Sazerac didn't see a problem, they saw another loophole. Marketing lesson number 5. People don't buy what you make, they buy what they think you make. Things do not pass for what they are, but for what they seem. Most things are judged by their jackets. Balthazar Gracian, Spanish philosopher. So Fireball created a second version of its product. This one contained only 16.5% alcohol and legally classified as a malt beverage. This meant it could be sold in gas stations and convenience stores where hard liquor isn't allowed. And despite clearly not being whiskey, Sazerac chose to package it with the same name, same logo, and same bottle design. One was cinnamon whiskey, the other was a cinnamon flavored malt beverage designed to feel like whiskey. The difference? A single word. The big bottle says cinnamon whiskey, the tiny bottle says cinnamon, and if you squint at the fine print, it says malt beverage with natural whiskey or other flavors, not whiskey, whiskey flavors. And here's the real genius. Most consumers don't read labels, they glance at them. Packaging experts say that in a physical store, shoppers take just 3 to 5 seconds to notice a product and decide whether or not to purchase it. And Sazerac knew that, so they designed a bottle where 3 seconds simply wasn't enough to tell the difference. The result? Fireball's mini bottles flooded 170,000 stores across America, and the public, most had no idea they weren't drinking whiskey. In fact, those tiny bottles became so successful that Fireball was ranked as a top 50 beer brand in America. Yes, beer, not whiskey, because legally, that's what it was. The deception was perfect and very profitable. Over the next 5 years, those tiny bottles brought in an estimated $70 million. Between the whiskey version and the malt beverage version, Fireball was everywhere. Bars, liquor stores, grocery stores, you couldn't escape it, and that was the point. But eventually, someone noticed. February 2023. A New York woman named Sharon Pizarro files a class action lawsuit against Sazerac. Her claim? Fraud. She bought what she thought was whiskey at a gas station. What she got was beer with whiskey flavoring. The lawsuit claimed Sazerac deliberately designed the tiny bottles to look almost identical to the big ones to trick consumers. The only difference was the one word on the label. In Sazerac's defense, we followed all the FDA labeling requirements, which was technically true. But the lawsuit raised a harder question. Just because something is legal, does that make it right? The case argued that Sazerac violated federal labeling requirements for distilled spirits, the Magnuson-Moss Warranty Act, and consumer fraud protections across multiple states. As of today, the products are still selling, the lawsuit is still ongoing, and Fireball hasn't changed a thing. And here's the final lesson Fireball teaches us. Fireball didn't sell whiskey, they sold the feeling of whiskey. The fire, the rebellion, the illusion, a bottle built on branding, not barrels. And it worked. From $1.9 million in 2011 to $863.5 million in 2014, a 45,000% increase in just 3 years. They didn't change what was inside the bottle, they changed what people believe was inside of it. Because in marketing, reality doesn't matter, perception does. Now, if you like this video, hit that subscribe button, and if you want to understand marketing on a deeper level, check out our free guide in the link down below, and I'll leave you with this quote. Everything we hear is an opinion, not a fact. Everything we see is a perspective, not the truth. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome.